No. A deep intake of breath. Or should I say, a bleep intake of death. A bit of Spoonerism there. Because most people who get up to do public speaking say, how do I stop the dying of fright when I'm on the stage? Mrs. Toastmaster, Mr. President, fellow speakers, and those of you that are watching on video, let me explain a little bit about speaking in public. Some 3 top tips that I'm going to give you. Now, it may well be that you're listening to this because actually you have some reason for getting up there and speaking in public, and actually you are a little bit scared of dying of fright. It may be that you have to give a toast, or it may be that you have to present to the board of directors, or maybe you have to pitch on a regular basis for business. Whatever your speaking challenge is, there's lots and lots of information out there on the internet. There's lots of information out there in books in the library. There's lots of videos like this one that will give you top tips. I'm going to give you 3. 3 top tips that I think are really, really fundamental to good public speaking. These 3 underpin all other top tips. And I've got 3 easy peasy words for you that will help you remember those 3 top tips. They are breathe, plan, and practice. Breathe, top tip number 1. If you do think that public speaking is a fate worse than death, then maybe you shouldn't breathe. But actually that's probably not such a good idea. And breathing is quite important when you are publicly speaking. For a start, it calms your nerves. Secondly, it helps with your tone, your pitch, and your volume. And of course, if you do a really, really long sentence and run out of breath at the end, you have an opportunity to accentuate the pause, which is a really good place to put your audience to recognise the remarks that you have made. Top tip number 2, plan. Even accomplished speakers rarely speak off the cuff. And the reason I say that is because they have honed their subject matter, they know it inside out, back to front, upside down. They've planned for years to deliver their message. They present their presentations on a regular basis. It's very often not ad hoc when they speak. And like a chef, it's a recipe, their speaking plan. Like a carpenter, it's a blueprint for them. Now, a chef and a carpenter are specialists in their own right, and they can ad-lib and ad hoc and improvise, but only when they have a plan in the first instance to work with. Because, like a speaker, they know their audience, and they have a purpose for achieving something with their speech. Without a plan, it's unlikely that your messages will be clear. Your anecdotes may not necessarily be applicable. And of course, if you're using props, they may not necessarily be appropriate if you haven't thought about what it is that you want to deliver. And part of the planning process also includes the structure of your speech. So you want to start by grabbing the attention of your audience, as well as making some clear key points and finishing with a memorable and dynamic hook. Top tip number 3, practice. No matter what level that you're at, practice will always be important. Practice your breathing, practice your style, practice the words that you're going to use to make sure that you're fluent. The more you practice, the more proficient you will be. Now, some people practice in front of a mirror, but if you're anything like me, you are your world's worst critic. Don't do it. It doesn't do your self-esteem any good whatsoever. Some people practice in front of the dog, I've heard. But again, probably not your best bet, given that the dog is your best friend and is unlikely to give you the feedback that you require from Fido. You could, of course, practice in front of a real-life audience and get feedback, get constructive feedback from that audience, wrapped up in warm encouragement. There are plenty of speakers clubs in the UK. You will find them on the internet. Me, I belong to Casterbridge Speakers. If you'd like more information about it, just visit www.casterbridgespeakers.org.uk. We meet on a regular